You are now listening to the fastest show on IE Sports Radio. My name is Daryl Kinsey Jr. welcoming you, taking a lap of the extra mile for today, June the 8th, 2023. And we have a lot of racing to get to this weekend. The greatest endurance race of them all is coming up. Not to mention NASCAR is going left and right in Sonoma. We just saw some great IndyCar racing at Detroit, and Mercedes might actually be back. And to help me talk about all that, of course, my co-host, Christopher Lehman. Chris?
How are you doing this evening, Daryl?
I'm doing great. Ready to get into the show. We'll be with you for the next hour. Make sure to get your comments in. We will read them as the show goes on. And ladies and gentlemen, as we get ready to start the program, unfortunately, we do have to talk about some unfortunate news that happened earlier this week as the Isle of Man TT, the most dangerous motorcycle race in the world, has gotten underway this week, and unfortunately, that race did once again claim another life as Raul Torres Martinez, passed away on the final lap of the Super Twin race there in the Isle of Man TT. If you've ever seen this race, it is the true definition of a road course race. There are no barriers, no walls, and these are motorcycles going 200 miles per hour. And unfortunately, if something happens, it's between you and God whether or not you survive. And unfortunately, Martinez did pass away. So we're going to start this show with the moment of silence and continue on from there. Thank you so much. Let's go ahead and get into it. We're going to start quickly with touching on the biggest moments from all the three races this week because, Chris, it's the 24 Hours of Le Mans this weekend. A lot of excitement, 62 cars, and if Michael was here, he'd be extremely excited because Ferrari actually did a good thing today during qualifying.
Yeah, Ferrari does good things pretty much everywhere outside of Formula One, so not overly unexpected, especially with a legacy team such as Ferrari. I was catching on, and obviously Garage 56 here stateside is really capturing most, if not all, of the attention. I'd say 99% of the content. In our group text this week, we were talking about just how much coverage Garage 56 is getting, and it's all good coverage so far. I haven't seen anything bad, so I'm really excited to see how that goes, which I'm sure we're gonna get into that a little bit more deeply. But and there's actually a little bit of discussion going on, Daryl. We kind of talked about a little this week too. Is entry, how to get your team entered into a racing and racing league and or discipline or whatever you want to call it. So we've obviously seen a lot of interest over the last couple of years in the endurance category, I guess would be the best way to put it. And so it's pretty fun.
Folks, we're going to have to break some major political news that just broke in the last 30 minutes, and I would not do this under any other circumstance. But given the gravity and the nature of the person involved, we're going to dip out of sports very quickly. It has just been reported within the last 30 minutes by multiple sources that former President Donald Trump has been federally indicted. That has now been announced on multiple outlets at this time. And that is unfortunately another historical blemish for that presidency. If you know, if you've been following, Trump has been under federal investigation for the handling of classified documents, and that indictment came down today. So that is the breaking news of the hour. We're going to get back here into motorsports. So that's as much we're going to cover with that, because that could take hours and hours and hours. But we'll go ahead and quickly get into the top stories from each of the top 3 races that we saw last week. And, of course, we'll start with the Formula One World Championship. Yes, Max Verstappen took the win. However, Chris, that Mercedes W14, and I sent this in our group chat during the race, it's wild how well that car runs once you put some actual side pods on the side of that car.
Yeah, I agree with you 1,000%, Daryl, and it it just makes you wonder why they waited so long. I understand that the zero pod, they had put a lot of time and effort, and they truly believed in it, but once you hit halfway through the season last year, how you didn't hit the panic button and say, you know what, we tried it, it doesn't work. We're going to start developing 2023 and we're going to hit the ground running. They brought this out and we're 9 rounds into the year. I mean, they're going to grab second in the constructors. That's as much. That's not even. They were already there without this upgrade. That's actually more on Lance Stroll than it is anything else. But they should have made this switch a year ago, in my opinion. And kind of like what I said to you in the group chat, I don't think that this year they're not going to grab a win. It's very unlikely Max and Checo both have bad days, and I think there's enough pace in the Red Bulls right now where they're still going to get first and second on, basically not rain day or where they get screwed over by a safety car or anything like that. But next year, I would absolutely expect Mercedes to be right there, if not competing for victories, but they should be getting double podiums with some sort of regularity, and beating one or both of the Red Bulls on pace.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I think next year will be 2021 redo without, hopefully, the crappy ending at Abu Dhabi. Just let it play out straight, including a safety car, which we got to talk about safety cars at some point. We'll talk about that during the Le Mans segment. But talking about this year, let's focus on Aston Martin. Is it just me, or does it feel like the development of that car is stalled out? Because they started this season, they hit the ground running. They were well and truly the second car on the grid in terms of performance. And you thought maybe they get a couple of upgrades, they'll be challenging Red Bull. Well, we saw the Red Bull is way too strong, but even then, it feels like the Aston Martin, as far as performance, has plateaued. And Mercedes, we knew they were going to figure it out. At least we hoped they were. They finally have figured it out, it looks like. And now Aston Martin is behind those top 2 cars.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. I haven't really seen anything where they're really bringing upgrades. So maybe they've got something big coming. Maybe for, maybe Austria in a couple weeks. Mm-hmm. Maybe they could be targeting something. But they haven't really brought many or any upgrades this season, which makes you wonder, did they, spend their budget out over the off season or what? Mercedes has, to their credit, they have been rolling out upgrades and trying new things and finding speed, finding pace. And the Aston Martin has just stood still. They're not getting any better. They're not getting any worse. And you just have to wonder why.
What's also not helping is that Lance Stroll has been boom or bust this year. He's got a few points finishes, but also some reliability issues in the Monaco Grand Prix. He got caught out by the wet, the so-called Rainmaster, he did not have a really good run. He did not have a good run at Monaco at all. At Spain, he was able to rally back to finish sixth, but the lack of consistency from Lance has been an issue. And he has been in Formula One for quite a while at this point. Even though he's 24 years old, he's kind of got to get it together, I think. I mean, he's had 130 entrants, still no wins, 3 podiums total. He's been around since 2017. That car is getting better, but he is not. That is a problem.
Yeah, and I think we all know why we're not talking about him being on the hot seat, right?
Yeah.
You can't even pretend to say that his dad owning the team is not the reason. That no way about it. He should be on the hot seat. I mean, if this is Red Bull, he would have been replaced 2 weeks into the season, with the pace that they had and the fact that he wasn't getting any type of results. And I said it a couple weeks ago. I said Aston Martin's going to lose P2 in the constructors, and that's on Lance Stroll. That's not on Fernando at all. He is maximizing that car. He's getting everything out of it. And I guess now that I'm saying it out loud, I mean, maybe one thing is maybe Fernando's just getting more out of the car than it actually has. And that's why their pace seems to have fallen off is, he's 41. He's probably tired. The season weighs on, you get a little tired, and, you're not putting down the same lap times or whatever. I don't know. I'm just kind of talking to fill time at this point, I guess. But,
yeah, it's hard to tell what's going on with. I think Alonso's doing right. What he's hitting his stride. It's just Lance has got to pick it up. He's got to get more points finishes if they're going to do anything. Now, I don't know how much Lance is helping out in the development. Obviously, they're listening to him because his dad owns the team. But you're absolutely right. If he was at any other team, Lance would probably be starting in the IndyCar series right now. Which is no indictment of the IndyCar series. But let's be honest, he wouldn't be in this job anymore.
Yes, I concur.
Yeah. But with that advantage, he's got to start doing something, because I wonder how long that "you're my kid" leash is, because eventually you're going to be missing out on potential constructors championships if this team continues to develop, if Lance can't develop with it. And that's just a question Lawrence Stroll is going to have to talk to. He's going to have a conversation about it. But on the other side, unfortunately, Michael is not here. Ferrari. What was that? Lifeless race out of the prancing horse on Sunday. And while their hypercar seems to at least have great one-lap pace at Le Mans, as they're going to lead the field to green on Saturday, the prancing horse is getting the results up here. Nowhere near contention. Carlos Sainz 5th, and Charles Leclerc started from the back of the grid, could not find the points. I don't know what's happening with Charles, but he needs to start wondering how much longer he's going to be at this team. Because I think for the good of his career, he's going to need to make a move. And it's going to have to come next year because all the seats are filled. But he's going to have to make a move somewhere.
Yeah. And, I mean, I don't know if this is the right thing to say. It's not a bad thing. We're not going to get roasted or anything. But have you noticed that this year, Chase Elliott it just feels like he doesn't care. Like, it feels like he's just done.
Well, it doesn't help he missed 6 weeks with the injury, but something feels different with Chase.
But even it just feels like he's just like over it. Mm-hmm. Like even when he's racing, he's not up towards the front. He's not competing for wins. It just seems like he's uninterested at best. And that's almost what it feels like with Charles,
Hmm.
right? You got a young guy with lots of talent, and he just seems like he's checked out and he's just kind of given up. That's that's the parallel that I draw. I don't know if it's right, wrong, but two of you know one of NASCAR and one of Formula One's young stars, at best they just seem uninterested,
Yeah.
and that's not good. You want you want your rising young stars to be fully vested.
I agree with that, but with just the absolute bad luck that Charles has had, I wonder if it's starting to wear on him to the point of apathy because it is not good what's going on with him right now with the
Yeah,
finishes. Uh,
I mean
I think.
he's signed till 2024,
Mm-hmm.
so he's got another year left, unless he's got an escape clause, which I doubt he's got.
Right.
I think Max is the only one with that right now.
And I don't see Max leaving because that car is absolutely dominating. But
Yeah.
Charles is not in a good place. And we're coming up to the Canadian Grand Prix. A lot of concerns about whether or not that race is going to go ahead due to the air quality around the circuit up there in Montreal, and really the Eastern Seaboard. As Chris and I have both have had issues with the smoke from those fires wafting down here. Now, we had a code purple, which I didn't even know existed for most of the day. Some areas even gotten a code maroon, which are the highest levels of the air quality scale. Now, Chris, I've seen the pictures, and you've sent us the pictures. It looks like the end of the world up there in upstate New York. What did it look like up there today?
Today it was actually relatively, I mean, I could see the sky, which is
Okay.
something I have not been able to see since Tuesday. Um so I could see the sky, I could see clouds. Um it seems like now we are getting a little bit of a respite. Um so we were kind of told like, hey, you guys are going to get a day or two off, and then this weekend you're back on. There's just something about the weather. There's like a low pressure system out west, so it's kind of pulling the smoke more towards like the Ohio, Minnesota regions, kind of that hitting that lower west side of the Great Lakes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but early next week we'll be back on. But I mean, if you just look at New York City, it looks like, I don't know if you've seen Blade Runner 2049, but it really looks like um, Blade Runner 2049. Like it's just outrageous. Um, and I've only seen the photos from the internet, but like if you just Google New York smog or New York um, uh, smoke, and you see all the photos where it's just like yellow, just
Mm-hmm.
like like Blade Runner. That is that is how it was for us yesterday. Like it was like unreal outside, like creepy. It really gave you an unsettling feeling. And we were up into the hazardous. You said, Daryl, you guys were in the dark purple, the very unhealthy. Um,
Yeah, we were basically told do not go outside today.
yeah, so yesterday we were in hazardous all day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the scale I believe goes to 500.
Yes.
Um, and I'll pull up the screenshot and show you where we were yesterday. So we maxed out. Oh, I don't have a screenshot. Um, we we maxed out at 450 something.
Mm-hmm.
So we were like in the like don't even go outside phase. Like like just it's not even worth it. So, um, yeah, I was outside for like 30 minutes doing some very light landscaping. Um, Wednesday, right? Today's Thursday, yeah, so Wednesday. Um, Doing some very light landscaping, and I was coughing after just a few minutes. So I can definitely foresee if these fires aren't brought under control. You know, like where I'm at, like concerts are getting canceled, after school activities are canceled. Um, Basically, anything outdoors is canceled. So it wouldn't be a big surprise to see the Montreal, the Canadian GP um, canceled, which would really suck because we're about, that brings us down to 21 races this season. I think because we lost China, um, we lost one of the Italy runs, and this would be the third race that we lost this year. So we'd be
Yeah,
down to 21.
yeah. Down here, it's looking like we're gonna have a code orange day tomorrow, which is you can at least get outside, but for sensitive groups, you should, watch your exposure. We were in a code purple to code red all day. We're actually still under a code red right now. And the question is, how bad is this going to get? And I guess it really depends on when these fires get out. The problem is there's still half a dozen fires up there, and all of them are out of control.
Yeah. So today we've been hanging out in yellow. We've been moderate all day.
Okay.
Or like upper ends. It's right now. It was updated at 8 p.m. and we're at 87. So kind of on the upper end of the moderates, but
Well, we will see how things go, and we will monitor that as we get ready for the Canadian Grand Prix, which will happen next week. We also had NASCAR this week. They were in Gateway, and that race had about every problem I think you could experience. There was a lightning delay. They had a power outage at the racetrack. They had a bunch of cautions, and that race just ended up being 5 or 6 hours just due to the really mainly due to the weather delay and then the power outage at the racetrack. But also, Kyle Busch ends up picking up the win. However, his teammate, Austin Dillon, ends up finishing back in the 30s after the two Austins, Cindric and Dillon, came together. Austin Dillon was trying to get a flag for intentional wrecking by Cindric. NASCAR did not agree. So Austin Cindric will be competing in Sonoma. But if you're RCR, and I get it, it's kind of a same situation as Aston Martin. But you're looking at Kyle Busch. He's made those cars more competitive in one season than Dillon has done his whole career. You really got to sit there and start thinking, how much longer do I keep my grandson in this car?
I don't know how you justify it for much longer. But at the same time, you are talking about not the greatest of all time, but there's no way that if you are being what's the term I'm looking for? Shit, I can't think of it. If you look at it from an unbiased opinion and you just look at stats, there's no way that you don't say that Kyle Busch isn't a top 5 driver in NASCAR history. Right? You got the 3 7 times, and then I'm sure there's there's a hill somebody's going to die on to put somebody in that 4th spot. But Kyle Busch is probably realistically the most deserving of that 4th spot after the top 3, in my opinion. But so you've got somebody of Kyle Busch's caliber, which is just unreal, generational. So of course he's going to make Austin Dillon look like a kid. But Austin Dillon is also got to step up.
Mm-hmm.
I
I mean,
don't know.
eventually he's got to do
We'll see.
something. Sonoma
But
is this week.
I do not see Austin Dillon losing his seat.
I don't think it will, but we're just going to have to see how they're going to get that car running. Unfortunately, we also had 4 cars blow out brake discs, including Noah Gregson, who experienced concussion-like symptoms this midweek, and he will not be in the car this week. So unfortunate for Noah Gregson and the Legacy Motorsports team. But he took I don't know if you saw it, Chris, he took a hellacious hit into the wall as he turned into turn 1, and that brake disc let go.
I did not. I, you know, I had every intention of watching the race, um, and then that lightning struck, and it shut everything down. And then I don't even know what we ended up doing, but we ended up I I didn't turn it on until like there was literally like 10 laps to go, and I saw
Mm.
Kyle Busch. I watched the last couple of minutes, but I had intended to watch it, but I don't I don't even remember what happened. I think I was outside doing some landscaping.
So we'll quickly touch on IndyCar before we get into Le Mans this week. Alex Palou dominates on the new Detroit GP circuit, leads 74 of 100 laps to take the win there. And that was a race that was a lot more entertaining than I thought it was going to be. Some good passing there on the downtown Detroit street circuit. They're going to make some improvements to the track for next year, but it was a lot of fun there. Now Alex Palou commanding lead, 51 points in the IndyCar title chase.
1 points, dang.
Yep. Kind of getting his Scott
Um,
Dixon on, who was his teammate over there.
yeah. Jeez. And what's crazy is he really hasn't had like the type of season where you see him dominating.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that consistency. If you're just always finishing good, everybody else is going to have DNFs and bad days. But if you can just kind of consistently be up towards the top, then you know that consistency means a lot.
Yep, going for his second win. All right, he has his second win in 3 races. The 2021 NTT IndyCar Series champion, looking for a second championship. He's going to get it done. He's going to have to hold on to that lead, obviously. And they're going to have another race in Road America on June 18th at 1 o'clock. The Sun CO Grand Prix at Road America. Should be another fun one for the Indy cars. Can't wait for that to come up. But this week we have NASCAR in Sonoma. They're going left and right. But the big race that's going to dominate this weekend, of course, is the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Chris, this is the centennial of the granddaddy of all endurance races. 7 miles around the French countryside. Most of it's still public roads. One of the few tracks to still use actual public roads that is not a dedicated street circuit. A lot of speed, still a lot of danger around here. 62 cars, 24 hours, and a robust hypercar class. This is going to be amazing.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. And usually, like I've said in the past, usually really the only time I ever get the opportunity to watch, especially since becoming a dad, is kind of like 9 p.m. until whenever I just kind of lose it and fall asleep. Which it's usually pretty fun watching it then anyway. It sucks you don't necessarily get to see all of the detail on the tracks, and it's harder to really gauge how the speeds are and how things are doing. But no, I'm looking forward to it. I'll probably get to watch 2-3 hours of it, and I'm looking forward to it. It'll be a good race. Especially, I'm really intrigued to see the NASCAR Garage 56 entry. and I'm really excited to see that thing run at night.
Yeah, let's start with that. The Garage 56 car. As y'all know, Chris and I, all over TikTok, all of the Le Mans content has been dominated by the Hendrick Cup car. Jimmy Johnson, not Michael Fassbender, I'm sorry, Mike Rockenfeller, and Jenson Button will be in that car this week. Michael Fassbender will be in the race, but he's going to be driving a Porsche in GTE AM.
Really?
Yeah, another one of our actors that have become racers. Joining,
I like
Clint
Michael
Dempsey.
Fassbender.
Yeah, he's pretty fast too, so he's can't wait to see how he does in the race this weekend. But going with the Garage 56, now this car is running in a class of 1. It does not have the same regulations that GTE AM does, and I say that because they actually ran faster than all of the GTE AM cars during practice and qualifying. So they will start as a buffer car between them. However, that car is just trying to finish. There is really no trophy for it. Finishing the race is its own reward. But just listening to the videos, and you hear the standard sports car sound from the other cars, and then the V8 power of a NASCAR Cup Series car goes flying by. It's definitely a different auditory experience, and it just looks out of place as well. Around the hypercars and the GTs, it just looks so massive compared to everybody else.
It looks like the stereotype people have of us, right? Americans were big and loud and full of hubris, and that car just reinforces that in every way. But it's pretty badass. So I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait to see that thing run, and I think as much as some people might not feel that it's the best entry, or whatever their negative thought would be on it. I think people are overall pretty excited about having that car there, and yeah, I mean it's good publicity for everybody, really, and hopefully we get some NASCAR people who wouldn't normally watch the race tuning in for at least some portions of it, and learning a little bit about a new sport.
It is one of for NASCAR, this is probably the most positive press they've gotten in quite some time. Everybody has just been so excited for this car and what it's going to do on track. I cannot wait to see it run on Saturday. I've already of course, I've been up here with MotorTrend.com open, live streaming the entire event, and I have been watching it go around. I really want them to be able to finish the race, but just to hear it and to see it out there, it was weird when the idea was broached. Now that it's here, I hope it goes well, and I hope they're able to finish and show that the Cup car can really now be a car that can be used on all tracks. And that's really what they're trying to show right here.
Yeah, I think they're trying to, Hendricks is trying to show, hey, there's better ways to make the racing more exciting, and we're going to give you the data to prove it to you.
Yes,
I think is what they're trying to do, and I would, as much as people are going to say absolutely not, how fun would it be to take like a Watkins Glen and make that a night race with lights? I mean, I say that because I'm a homer, right? I live just a couple miles away from Watkins Glen, but get on like even like a Road America or something, or a Circuit of the Americas, or the run Daytona at night. Just put lights in those damn cars and do something at night, because I can tell you, like we talk about how Monaco's a party, right, and how the Indy 500 is a party and Daytona's a party. You would get so much hype around that race, especially if these cars performed like this Garage 56 car is, which I think this car is significantly faster and more agile around the track. Um, they have a real opportunity to make it like a kind of a badass, like almost like a Coke 600 at night, like like a NASCAR endurance race at night.
We've been asking for a NASCAR endurance race, and they could possibly pull something off for that. Don't know if they will take any of this technology and transfer it over, but it won't be interesting to see what they decide to do with all this data that NASCAR is going to be pouring over, and Hendrick as well, once this is over. But in the classes that are running for the win, LMGT AM, there's going to be 12 cars. The number 33 Corvette is on pole there for LMP2. IDEX Sport, the number 48, will lead them to the green. And in Hypercar, Ferrari, the 51, going to lead the 50, going to lead the field to green, as the Ferrari 50 and 51 will be on the front row, a 16-car grid there of hypercars. Chris, this is going to be a race where traffic and in that top class, reliability, which is something we haven't said in a long time, is going to be a huge factor to decide who's going to go and win this race.
Yeah, I mean, if you think back to the origins of endurance racings, it was, hey, can you build something that's going to last? And when it started, most of the time, the answer was no. So it's always fun to see, with updates and new cars, and we take for granted the fact that these cars will run that whole length. That's something that we take for granted, and it's always, as much as it sucks for the people that go home after a failure, it's still, I don't want to say refreshing to see, but it's kind of a nice reminder that, hey, this isn't easy. Mm-hmm. This is really damn tough. And it just kind of adds a little bit of credence to those, and obviously these days most of the cars finish. But it just, it's like the Coke 600, right? That's an endurance race. It's just a testament to man and machine, really, because neither one could do it without the other. So, yeah.
Yeah, I am excited. I'm going with Toyota to take the win in GT, or in Hypercar, sorry, as usual, Corvette in GTE AM, and that the LMP2 class, 24 cars, that one's always just a toss-up, and that class will not be decided probably until the final hour of the race. And by that, I mean like the final minutes of the final hour of the 100th Centennial. And let us check, do we have any rain in the forecast for this weekend? Yes, we do. There is a 80% chance of rain during the day on Saturday. Most of that rain is going to be in the morning and around 3 o'clock when the race is going to get started there in Le Mans. But there's going to be a steady rain threat all throughout the 24 hours of Le Mans, and a big rain chance coming to the end of the race on Sunday. So, of course, for the Centennial, they got to make it the most treacherous. Changeable conditions, going to be the word for all 24 hours. I love it. Just inject it into my veins. I cannot wait to what we're about to see.
Yeah, and the rain, of course, just despite the fact that there's a NASCAR there, right? Because with NASCAR, we just become accustomed to rain. So it'll be fun to see if it does rain. It'll be nice to see a car on rain tires, which is something that we rarely see. So maybe the Hendrick car, if it sees some rain, maybe they can get some data back to NASCAR and say, hey, it's okay. These cars they work in the rain.
Yeah, we're actually going to see a Cup car run in the rain and not have to stop. I think that's what I'm going to be the most excited for.
Yeah. That's sad, isn't it?
Yeah. Hopefully they can use whatever they learned here to develop some honest-to-God rain tires. I'd love that. Because that is something we've been missing. That's something that we desperately need.
Absolutely, we do.
Yep. So we got a little bit of time before we say goodbye. There's some more Le Mans news. There's going to be new safety car rules this week during the race if a safety car comes out. They will have one safety car train, and they're actually going to let cars get their laps back if they run into trouble during the 24 hours of Le Mans. Sorry, if there is a caution, they're going to let cars lap down their class leader, get their lead back. Toyota is already complaining, calling it the Americanization of the race. But however, putting it into a reality check, there was one safety car during the Rolex 24 last year. Everything else was done with the slow zones. I don't see that changing. So I don't think it's going to have that much of a factor on the race, especially because it is very easy in this race to go 2, 3, 4 laps down with the hours of green flag running that we have.
Yeah. And you know, like you just said, I mean, how significant is this really going to be? How much impact will this actually have? Realistically, probably little or none.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a mild inconvenience at best.
Yeah. And of course, with our luck, we're going to have an Abu Dhabi 2021 type situation because we just freaking jinxed it, because that's how our luck tends to go. But
I'd be fine with that. It'd make it interesting.
I don't think it's going to be an issue.
No.
And I think once we get it done, folks will calm down.
Yeah. Yep, I wholeheartedly agree with you.
Yes. And we're coming up to Sonoma, which is for NASCAR, another road course for them. This is a track that's kind of similar to Monaco in its construction, where qualifying on Saturday is going to have a lot to do with where you finish. And the thing is, with this race, unfortunately, not a lot of passing here. So qualifying on Saturday is going to be extremely important. And this is also going to be a place where you might see a lot of elbow throwing and bumper banging to get through to pick up positions, because it's just not going to be an easy place to pass.
Yep. 100%. Sonoma is like, to me,
Chris, I may have lost you there.
Uh-oh.
My headphones come back on, because apparently they're chirping at me that they are low. Say something now.
Am I back?
Yes, you are back in my ears. Keep
Awesome.
going.
I would, and this is just my personal preference, Daryl, and I know you're going to disagree with me, and that's okay. I still love you at the end of the day. To me, Sonoma is less watchable and more boring than Monaco.
That's saying a lot.
I hate Sonoma. I think it's the Texas is right there, though. Sonoma is probably one of my top 3 least favorite tracks. Texas, Poconos, and Sonoma. Those are my 3 hated tracks. Sonoma just literally doesn't do anything for me. I don't even watch. That's like, that and Texas are literally the only 2 races of the year that I actively just say I have no interest in watching.
Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, Texas is a playoff race.
Yeah. I don't watch it, though, to my credit. I am nothing if not moral.
The last time out we were here, that is when Daniel Suarez got that emotional first win. Not sure if that is going to happen here this weekend, where he goes back to back. But this is a place where It's going to be tough for the non-road course ringers, looking at you, Bubba Wallace, but they're going to have to figure something out because you just cannot sit back and just punt on those races.
Yeah, and what Trackhouse has just kind of disappeared this year.
Yeah, they
not fully, but they're still running towards the top. But I mean, last year they were the talk of the town, so to speak. And this year they're just kind of nowhere. They paid their drivers and then they kind of disappeared.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like they have the same oomph last year. And even in general, the cream has really risen back to the top when it comes to the winners in the Cup Series. I really don't think we're going to get to that 16, 17, 18 different winners that we had like last year. Point. Unless we just have a rash of first-time winners. I think you're going to see a significant amount of that field point its way in, which is a good thing for not Jeff Gordon, sorry. Bubba Wallace is currently sitting in 15th. Lord, I am tired, and it has not been the best day for me. I am ready to call it a day. So,
yeah, me too.
But yeah, Bubba Wallace is currently sitting in 15th, lost some points with the horrendous day they had at Gateway. Gonna have to just manage expectations at Sonoma. But it's gonna be fun, and it's gonna be our race for nearest the win,
which I have not updated in like a month.
Yeah, we'll have to get that updated, and we'll get you the points in a little bit. As far as nearest the win, and Taryn, thanks for telling me that, but just for things I don't want to go into on the program, I just going to take a shorter show today and just leave it at that. For nearest the win, I am going to take here at Sonoma. You know what? I think the road course ringer comes back to form.
AJ Allmendinger.
Nah, I'm not going to play that one. He has had a horrible year, by the way. I'm going to take Chase Elliott, but AJ Allmendinger, we all thought he was going to be so much better, and he's just not. That team has just been a non-factor this year.
Yeah. I don't want to be that guy, but I've always thought that AJ Allmendinger was just overrated.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a discussion we don't necessarily need to have. It's just my own personal opinion. I never understood the hype. But I'm going to go with a different road course ringer, and that would be Chase Elliott's teammate, Kyle Larson, who really kind of took that over from Chase when he came to Hendrick. I don't think Chase has won a road course since. I know he won one. I think he's only won one road course in like the last 2 years.
Yeah,
which is crazy to think about.
So that'll do it for this edition of the Extra Mile. Oh wait, before we go, we don't want to leave just yet. I'm going to wrap up on this one before we say goodbye. This whole thing with Andretti and what's going to happen with the F1 team. We're supposed to find out by the end of this month whether or not the Andretti F1 bid is going to be accepted. But Stefano Domenicali seems at this point hell-bent to make sure this deal does not happen, as a new Concord agreement is being worked on with the teams. They're trying to get more races, which I don't know how I feel about that. Up to a maximum of 12 teams. However, a $1 billion entry fee for those new teams. I'd like to point out, we haven't had anyone buy in since it was $200 million. Then they arbitrarily raised it to $600 million. And now they're talking about $1 billion. When, at this point, does it become an antitrust lawsuit? Because at this point, they're not bargaining with new teams in good faith at all. This is a definition of bad faith.
Correct, 100%. I agree with you. And I was so some big news that came out this week is the PGA, the DP World Tour, and Live Golf all merged,
Mm-hmm.
or at least they have agreed to it. So, um, and what this, and I'll bring it around, I promise. So what you get is the Live Golf Tour was started by the Saudi Arabian government, the PIF,
Mm-hmm.
and basically they're calling it sports washing, right? You're buying publicity to cover up the atrocious human rights violations that you have and continue to rack up,
Yes.
right? We all know Saudi Arabia has a reputation, and it is I would say it's a fair reputation, albeit unfortunate, but fair. Um, so, and it's because the Middle East has all of this oil money, and so they have more money than they literally know what to do with. And it kind of broke or came out that the Washington Commanders is going to sell for the mid like 4 to 6 billion. It's kind of somewhere in that range. But there's a report that there may be another franchise coming up for sale shortly, and they're saying that it's going to be significantly more money, like double, if not more.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you really have to start looking at who can afford to buy in, right? And you have to look at the Middle East and the families there that have acquired so much wealth, and it is literally through the pain and suffering and murder and slavery and stealing from the people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so you have the ability for sports washing not only in golf but now football, American football. And the reason I say this, and it's going to come around, is that when you raise your price tag to $1 billion to buy in, you're looking at $1 billion to buy in, another 100 million or so to build a facility, or maybe half that to buy an existing and renovate it and equipment, and you're probably realistically talking $2 to $3 billion for a Formula One team to start from the ground up, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe like 1.5 billion to 2 billion for someone to kind of come in and do it cheap, right? Not not make the most groundbreaking everything. And I think they kind of get like a year or two mulligan without really a cost cap, if I'm not mistaken. Um, so raising the bar that high, it will take out Andretti. Andretti is not going to come up with $1 billion. I think at that point he's going to cut his losses, or the people that he'd have to, and I don't like using this term, but the people he'd have to get in bed with are not the type of people you want to be doing business with, because
Mm-hmm.
$1 billion is a hell of a lot of money just to buy the opportunity to sit at the table. All you're doing is you're buying a seat at the table. Um,
Yes.
so I'm really weary about raising the bar, and I'm really weary about just the valuation of sports in general, because we are so absent-minded when it comes to overlooking the atrocities of governments for entertainment value.
Well, folks are willing to downplay a lot as long as it doesn't affect their favorite sports. But hey, we're getting ready to get out of here. Gonna be a shorter run up to the ending. Chris is at Fiji Sims. I'm at DK Junior 12. Make sure you keep it locked to all places where you can hear podcasts, hear more fantastic iSports Radio shows, and check out iSportsRadio.com for links to all our shows, to the Patreon, and more. For Chris, I'm Daryl. This has been The Extra Mile. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you in the next green flag. Good night, everybody.